So, welcome to the 2016 12 Steps on the Path to Freedom. My name is Lisa, and I am a student of the 12 Steps recovery process and have been for over 50 years. And my background in fellowships has been, I've touched most of them, but my focus today is CODA, OA, and Al Anon. And I can't express how excited I am and feel honored to show you guys the path. And I know that a lot of us have already walked this path, but as we've learned, it's a never-ending story, and we just keep walking forward together. So that's a great thing. Um, and although I'm the facilitator, I'm no one's authority, not even my own. I use my higher power. And I just like to remind people that only you can get your answers from inside of you. And I will show you what has worked for me and many others. Um, but ultimately, the answers are going to come from yourselves. Please keep in mind that although we are not a traditional fellowship meeting, the expectation is that our meeting is anonymous. If you have a question, please raise your virtual hand and I will call on you in the order that your hands go up. I do like to refrain from answering questions till after the PowerPoint is completed, but I completely appreciate if somebody hears something and you need me to stop and just really grab a hold of that. I have no problem doing that. So if that does happen during the presentation, just raise your hand. Um, we don't thrive on crosstalk. This is an interactive meeting, meaning um, a member can present a question to the group and anyone in the group can answer. It doesn't have to be answered by me. Um, the problem with crosstalk, and I do give a wide berth, but the problem with crosstalk is people generally talk over each other and the message gets lost in the confusion. So, you know, I'm not gonna slap anybody's hand with a ruler, but try to keep things as organized, at least conversationally, as possible for everyone's sake. It just really helps everybody. All right. So this is our set aside prayer as we begin our journey together. I pray that our higher powers will join us on our path to freedom from our unmanageability. So the set aside prayer is a prayer, and you'll see it at the beginning of every workshop. And I do make small differences in the wording to go along with what's going on with our weekly work or maybe something going on myself. But I do change up the words, and I like to encourage that because the set aside prayer is probably one of the most important prayers in the 12-step program. And the thing that I like best about it is that you can change it to suit whatever need that you need to do. And it's an invaluable way of doing things. And I start my day with it, and I use it with my steps. I use it with my higher power. I use all of it. So what I'll do is in the morning, I'll take a quick look at my calendar, and then I ask for specific guidance that I might need in this upcoming day. Maybe not, but sometimes, maybe I'm seeing a doctor and I'm nervous and I want to be released and feel peace. And then there's days where it's just guidance in general, not necessarily anything specific, but I put the invitation out to have my higher power along with me in my daily routine, just as a support and a place to touch base when things do go awry, because my life is unmanageable and that stuff does happen. So if you'd like to say this set aside prayer with me or not, whatever you want, you can do it quietly or silently. But go ahead if you want to say it with me. Dear God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself, addiction, the 12 steps, my spiritual path, my brokenness, and especially you, so I may have an open mind and a new experience. So there's no rules in this workshop, not really. Just suggestions and guidelines, and most importantly, um, our shared experiences and all of ours. It does, like I said, it's not just me sitting up here. I just happen to do the logistics of all this. But there are two disciplines in recovery. And the two that we're looking at are our addictions or our higher power. So the first one is we're either grasping for one of our addictions to cope with our unmanageable lives, or we're embracing our higher power, the only power capable of supporting and enriching our lives and our unmanageability. So I like to think of them as darkness, meaning my fears and addictions, and then the light is the love and the faith that I get from my higher power. I will generally use the word higher power to express the entity that people call God, people call Jesus. There's so many names, there's so many different ways of saying it. I don't want to offend anybody by using the wrong name. So higher power is right out of the big book, and that's probably what I'll use. But I will change it up every once in a while because it's just a word. It's really important not to get caught up on the words. The meaning is way more important. So another way of looking at the two fundamentals are the early disciplines is acceptance of the problem and our surrender to our higher power. And this foundational approach often centers on two primary disciplines or actions. In step one, which is the step of honesty, it's the rigorous internal discipline of admitting that we are powerless over our addictions and that our lives have become unmanageable. And the second one is the service step, which is step 12, which is the outward discipline of carrying the message to other addicts, which helps maintain one's own sobriety and strengthens the recovery community. So here we have my version of what I refer to as Lost Lisa. Anybody that's been in Herb's groups, they've seen what's he call himself? Pathetic Herbie. And this is what represents how I was feeling before my spiritual awakening. I'd been bound by the chains of fear and intermittent faithlessness for most of my life. The only remedy I needed was always right there supporting me from afar, which is the light of the Holy Spirit. Life was very difficult for me, and I was unaware of what the truth was and what wasn't the truth. And I felt like a woman in chains, self-imposed, but still really hefty chains. And I was waiting for somebody to come along and remove the chains from my body and my life and my suffering. But look at this picture a little closer, and you'll see what's really going on here. So, my belief is that I'm chained to my misery and my suffering and my fear and all of that, but the chains aren't even actually attached. They're false. It's the false ego. It's showing up like it's real, like the fear is real and the suffering is real, and that's what's bringing me down. But that's not really what's happening. What's really bringing me down is my beliefs about myself and the world around me. Now, you're all going to get a chance to draw, paint, or color your own version of your personal prison later on in another workshop lesson. But absolutely feel free to work on it whenever you feel like it. And I would really encourage people to get as involved in the making of their picture as they possibly can. It's very freeing and it's very revealing. So if you feel like going ahead and working on your picture, go for it. And hopefully everyone would like to share because it's always interesting to see other people's ideas. So Bill W. talks about the light switch experience of turning the switch on or up to intensify the light of the higher power. And he calls it a dimmer switch, which I'm sure you've all seen a dimmer switch. You just slowly turn it up. You can slide them up now. They used to actually spin. Um, and then we have the other is the light switch, which is instantly you flip the switch and the room lights up, and you turn the switch down and the room goes to complete darkness. It's quite stark and different. Whereas the dimmer switch is very slow to go up, and you would even hardly notice that it does. So when Bill was in his hospital room, he had a 20-minute experience where he expressed that he was taken to the top of a mountain. A mystical, phenomenal experience changed his life when he was there. So Bill said that the experience broke his addiction cycle. And he said of his experience, quote, "My depression deepened unbearably, and finally it seemed to me as though I were at the bottom of the pit. I still gagged badly on the notion of a power greater than myself, but finally, just for the moment, the last vestige of my proud obstinacy was crushed. All at once, I found myself crying out, 'If there is a God, let him show himself. I am ready to do anything, anything.'" And he says that suddenly the room lit up with a great white light. He says, "I was caught up into an ecstasy which there are no words to describe. It seemed to me, in the mind's eye, that I was on a mountain and that a wind, not of air, but of the spirit, was blowing. And then it burst upon me that I was a free man. Slowly, the ecstasy subsided. I was in another world, a new world of consciousness. All about me and through me, there was a wonderful feeling of presence. And I thought to myself, so this is the God of the preachers." And if you read Bill's story, he was very anti-religion. He fought it his whole life. And he, even when he wrote the big book, he was very cautious to put all the different names of what a higher power could be in there. He didn't want to offend anybody, and he didn't want to lose anybody through an act that seemed like religion, which it really isn't. So my version of a mountainside experience was not on a mountain, but in a hospital parking lot. It was during the end of COVID. A loved one of mine was severely injured in a drunk driving accident when he struck a tree off of the highway. And he spent about 5 weeks in rehab to recover from his physical injuries. And that was the easy part of the crash and burn. But I was feeling totally out of control in my life before the crash and spent about 3 months trying to leave the marriage. He was on a really bad spiral. I was tired of struggling, and I just couldn't come up with the energy to walk away. And I was too deeply controlled by my fear of abandonment, and I have a really strong addiction to people and relationships. So leaving, I just couldn't get what it took to get out of there. So when I was faced with such an immense choice to stay or go, and I couldn't decide, I couldn't think properly, but on some level, I knew I would stay because I was addicted to him and the chaotic relationship that we shared. But that night, when I walked alone into the parking lot and I was experiencing like this funky haze of denial and fear and a whole flood of emotions, I realized I was not capable of deciding whether I should stay or go. I felt predestined to make the choice to stay, but felt too terrified to leave. And I felt this crushing heaviness in my chest as my heart nearly beat out of my chest. I was in such a state. But being immobilized and not being able to decide, um, was making my life even that much more difficult. Um, so I made the decision to give this gigantic question over to something higher than me, bigger than me, that knew more than me, and that could see beyond what I could see, because I have very small tunnel vision and I wanted it to be global. Is this the right move? I just couldn't be immobilized by it anymore. And it came pretty easy for me that night. I literally made the turn in seconds. I chose to allow the creator of my universe to take that decision from me and and show me how to choose or make the choice or lead me to the choice. And I can't describe the peace I felt in doing that, of offering that, of making that turn and deciding I couldn't make a decision. I spent a decade trying to make that decision and couldn't do it. And then I felt such a sense of relief that I didn't have to do it anymore, that I didn't have the answers and I didn't have the control of the outcomes. And I was exhausted, and this catalyst came, and I just took the leap and I jumped right in. So that was the beginning of my spiritual awakening. I was totally unaware of what my intention in that parking lot had started, but it's incredible how different life was showing up for me. So to me, there's no end to this expansion of light, of what I call creation. From the beginning of time, there has been a speck that flashed and expanded. It is still expanding millions of years later. How could I have believed I was greater than that? I clearly am not. And I'll continue to evolve. Some people say, well, if you found God, why don't you just stick with that? Well, it's not that I found God and that's the end of the discussion. It's that it opened up this crack in me that just continues to get larger and larger, and it gets filled more and more with the Holy Spirit. And I'm planning on doing that till my last breath. So this workshop is available to everyone that seeks to feel closer to their source. And as a bonus, eliminate a whopping ton of unmanageability. And unmanageability is the common denominator that is found in all humans, and it's found in all addictions. And it doesn't matter what a person's status, color, age, or sex is. More often than not, when we seem to get recovery for one addiction, another one crops up. And why would that happen? Why does this whack-a-mole situation go on? So, when a person overcomes one addiction but picks up another, it's a phenomenon known as transfer addiction or cross addiction. And it's typically because the underlying psychological, emotional, and neurological drivers of the addiction were not entirely resolved. So the brain/mind still craves the dopamine rush, or the individual is using a new addictive behavior to cover up their stress or pain. So we are fighting the outward effects of individual addictions and not addressing that we actually have a spiritual malady, a lack of power needed to address such a mighty foe, our unmanageability and lack of power. That's what we're addressing in this workshop, our unmanageability and lack of power, to put it in the simplest of forms. So this is Lost Lisa after she did her turning in the parking lot. And I was probably 2 or 3 when I began experiencing the darkness and instinctively started seeking the light. I somehow knew it was there, but didn't know how to tap into it. And I didn't have anyone to model that behavior or show me the ropes. It's not to say I wasn't brought up religiously, I was, but that wasn't cutting it for me. And even as a child, I knew that. But coming from an abusive childhood, to then becoming an abusive young wife, my internal dimmer switch was on, but it was dark as heck. Yet I had this teeny tiny speck of light, which was enough to at least ask the tough questions. I had just enough courage to not let the darkness completely consume me, but not enough of it removed to feel like my life was peaceful. I even tried using alcohol, but my body wasn't having any of that. I just couldn't handle alcohol. And for a short time, I did run wild with, with the drunken darkness, but that really wasn't my problem. My problem was my codependency. I had overeating issues and restricting issues. And eventually, I was just so full of fear that I slowly became incapable of leaving my own home due to my debilitating fear and anxiety. And I eventually became an agoraphobic, which I don't know if people know what that is, but somebody who can't leave their home. And I stayed that way for 15 or 20 years because I felt like I was suffocating. Everywhere I looked, I saw myself suffocating. I was unknowingly the poster girl for unmanageability. So I would go to more meetings and I would go to new therapists, but nothing was helping me. I was slowly disappearing. I was literally on my knees daily trying to connect for even just a moment's reprieve from my pain and suffering. And a lot of my spiritual experiences started happening when I was in my 30s, and yet I was at the peak of my dysfunctional behaviors, which to me doesn't make sense, but it kind of does. People even noticed a difference in my life, and I thought I knew what it was, sort of, but I wasn't one to give anyone or anything else any credit. And I needed more proof if I were to let go of my precious control to this unknown entity that seemed to be in my life. So being authentic with myself and with my potential was part of the way out for me. Um, I had this new constant presence of the light that was in charge of the outcomes of my life, that took over my life. And once I turned my will and my life over to the care of my creator, the peace became indescribable. The knowing of a guiding, supportive presence became the forefront of my new outlook. My life was, in essence, a new beginning. So this picture basically, you can go towards the addictions and the chains that bind you, or you can walk away and walk towards faith. And I'm not saying that like it's simple and easy, because it's not, but it is the solution. So I finally turned that light on after many, many years, decades of trying to control the light switch or thinking I could be successful at covering it up with my superhuman powers. In in that moment on that night of many deaths, his and mine, after many foundational moments, I had easily made my final choice. Although it required no thoughts this time. I just literally knew I was going to trust outside of myself, beyond my understanding, to allow the possibility that my truth was not the truth, and that I was willing to take a long, hard look at what the truth actually is. So I put my rose-colored glasses on and I'm seeing a different whole world out there. One that was always there, but I couldn't see it. I was too far-sighted. I was self-centered. I had that tunnel vision. And the more I feared due to my lack of faith, the more self-centered I got and the more unmanageable my life became. So part of your homework, and I discussed this a little in the beginning, was to write your own set-aside prayer, and I hope people did have a chance to do that. And as I said, it's very strongly suggested to use this set-aside prayer every morning, just for lots of different occasions, or just even when nothing's coming up, just as a guidance or as it's like the key unlocking the door in the morning. I say, I'm unlocking the door. This is the key, and I'm opening it to my higher power. And I say mine every morning, and I change the words to express whatever I need it to do. And I'm not saying this is a I'm going to change my life kind of prayer, because I'm not. And God doesn't change lives, but does support my direction and desire to change mine. So, my suggestion is to use this as a daily practice. Use it as much as you need it. If you need to switch it off halfway through the day because you're having one of those days, switch it off. If you've got somebody in your life that you need help with, add them to your prayer. This is such a versatile prayer and it can do so much. And honestly, you will see results, I would say within 30 days. It clears out your mental slate. It clears off that board and it allows new experiences to come in so that you can have spiritual growth and your ability to see the truth will get even sharper. Your glasses will get better. So, it's a new experience and it will take us in a different direction, but you are going to be so amazed by how different life is going to look when you really start to use this prayer. And this is the radical transformative change that Bill professes to us in the big book. He talks about it as the set aside prayer attitude. So, what we're watching here is the metamorphosis of the monarch butterfly, which is my favorite, probably favorite thing in the world, because we too must also shed our old selves. We must not bring our old self everywhere we go. Just like this butterfly, we are shedding our old selves and our prior lives for good. We can't go back and put our old skin back on or live our old lives. So the goal is to allow ourselves to die to our false selves and our pasts. We have the ability to surrender our false selves in order to see things differently, to change what we have thought to be the truth, so that we can do and be something entirely different than what we have been. And that sounds simple, and it is. And I'm telling you that everyone in this room can have that. If you're willing to do the surrender and invite your higher power into your life, you are going to see a very much improved life. 100%. So I am the creator of my false self, my ego, also known as edging God out. And it comes from inside of me. I created it out of necessity in order to cope with a life of abuse that I couldn't figure out how to cope. So I needed a distraction. And in trying to usurp God, I became remarkably egomaniacal. When I looked at all the areas where I was playing God and broke it down boulder by boulder and rock by rock, it eventually began to feel like sand. I built a fortress around myself as a child to protect myself and control people, places, and things around me to keep me safe. But it was a long time before I realized that my way of living had become a deep, dark dungeon. Calling it a fortress made me feel better about my life, or more accurately, I felt better because it was easier to hide in the darkness than it was to hide in the light. The need to hide behind my fears in order to gain control is majorly gone. No more hiding from my higher power or from me. I thought I was hiding from people, places, and things, although in reality, I was actually hiding from myself and my creator. The people, places, and things don't frighten me anymore, and my light is a beacon that I shine wherever I can to bring this message that we don't have to live in fear. We don't have to live our pasts over and over again. We have those choices. And I survived my dark protective cocoon. And my reward is that I'm given these wings now that I can soar and literally fly. I've only started flying in the past year. But my newly discovered knowledge became the air beneath my wings that has carried me to many new places that I thought I would never get to see, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And the knowledge and understanding that fear is not as strong as faith has set me free. My chains are gone. I am renewed, enlightened, and spiritually awake. I'm freed from the chains of my addictions. I have been given the honor to pass this light to the next ones in line. So, what is this unmanageability that I've been talking about? My definition is myself enslaved in hell on earth, the only hell there is, and it was created by me. Bill W. defines unmanageability in the Big Book as a life driven by self will that has become uncontrollable, chaotic, unstable, and characterized by an inability to stop using despite severe negative consequences. It encompasses the internal spiritual malady, restlessness, irritability, and discontent, along with emotional, financial, social, and physical decline. That's quite a paragraph that Bill wrote. He also said, we
What
enter the world of the spirit. Go ahead.
what page is that on? Where is that? Where did he write that?
Um, that I can get you the page after, Joel, but I'll write it down. You want?
Yeah.
Yep, I can get it for you.
Because I want to copy that down. I want to write it down word
Yep,
for word because it describes me. And but I want to, I
yep.
want to write it down.
I'll put it in the chat for you too. So if you want to,
Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you because it was
no, that's fine. Actually, I can't copy it. I will get you the page though. Um, so Bill also said we enter the world of the spirit in step 10, while steps 1 through 9 are for dealing with our false selves, that ego that runs our worlds. In step 3, we turn, which is quoted in the big book as made the decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him, it, that, choose your word. And we are given the freedom of neutrality, which frees us from our unmanageability, but only on a daily basis. We are only given this reprieve one day at a time. My free will is not free in all areas, and unfortunately, my free will always choose me. It will always support my ego self. I don't see it, I won't feel it, but I will suffer because of my self will run riot. So when I'm feeling out of control and feeling that unmanageability in my life, I need to do a step 10 spot check inventory because whenever I am disturbed, it is always because of me. That's a tough pill to swallow, but think about it. So we begin with our morning meditation to set our intention for our day. We finish with our evening review to see where we may have veered off of our path or if we owe an amends. I start my day in prayer or meditation, and I end my day in a step 10 review. I have a ping pong brain, which makes meditation very difficult, but I do it anyway. And the review session for me is a lot easier. I ask for guidance to do what is in my best and highest good and to consider all those who could be involved. So for me, it goes something like this. Step 11 in the morning for guidance. I actually set my alarm 5 or 10 minutes early so that I don't have the excuse of I don't have time, I got to get out of bed. And then at night, I do the step 10 to clean up the day's crap, the garbage for my day, if there is any. During the day, if I need to, if I'm really struggling with something, I'll do a quick step 10 right there on the spot. That's why they call it the spot check. I just instantly do a step 10. And this is known as emotional sobriety or emotional maturity when we address potential outcomes and then the results are left to the powers that be. The end result is so much bigger than me. So I leave that up to the one that can also the one that's also created me can handle it. And I can relax in the knowledge that my higher power is more capable than I will ever be regarding my life's outcomes. So we had a few questions that went home with us, and we actually had one asked here tonight. Um, and number one was, why are you here? Here you are out of millions of people out there, and you are here. You chose to do this workshop. Some others wouldn't have given it a second thought, but not you. You did this. And why is that true? And don't worry, there's no right answer. It's just your answer. But write it down, date it, and save it. We will be going back to it later, and it will be interesting to see how things have transpired. So make sure you do answer number one. Then number two, what is your primary source of suffering? What's your deal? What is making you suffer? What is the cause? What's going on? Give that question some thought. Answer that. And again, save it. Don't get rid of it. This is Einstein. He said, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it, which I love. That's a great statement. So let me ask, are you willing to set aside your ideas or are you able to just let them go? Would you prefer to keep a blank slate to fill in with new answers because you are a new person each time you do a new workshop? We want to get new answers. In order to accomplish this, we need to free our minds and open our hearts. Bill wrote on page 27 of the Big Book, ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men, are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. What Bill is describing here is a profound psychic change or vital spiritual experience. That's on the page 27 in the Big Book. And that results from working the 12 steps. It means abandoning old, selfish, self-destructive attitudes like self-pity, dishonesty, and the ego, and replacing them with new concepts like honesty, unselfishness, and love, which dominate a recovered person's life. And Bill suggests that we stop and ponder whenever we read a question in the Big Book. If there's a question in there, stop and think about it. Don't just read it like it's words. Read it like it's a question and give it an answer if you can. He even says, think of them as stop signs. When you see a question mark, think of it as a stop sign. And also ask yourself, did you understand the question? Don't think about the answer. Think about the question first. How effectually can we answer a question if we don't understand what it is actually asking us? When we get to step 4, we will be performing soul surgery on ourselves and we will go very deep. And things may seem negative, which reminds me to make sure you have read the participant agreement sent in the email. Just a little tidbit in there. But I invite our higher power to remove our disease of the spirit. This may bring lots of uncomfortable moments, but you are supported here. We will also share when answering those 2 tough questions that were on the prior PowerPoint. And once we do, this will be setting a motion for our personal request for higher action. The information is the key to the understanding of how to live in grace. Just asking for more information brings a new experience to the table. A request is setting your recovery in motion and finding the path of least resistance. It sets things in motion. It's time for action with your new information in place. The action itself provides your life with the new experiences it needs to replace the old. So, the next question to ask yourself is your life today currently filled with serial suffering? This term describes a life characterized by ongoing struggles, often seen in the context of chronic illness, continuous disappointments, or the lowercase t traumas of everyday life. Historically, this is described as a life that is a continuous series of sorrow, where distress is familiar and constant rather than an exception. It is described as a persistent, growing gap between the life one has and the life one wishes for, where suffering continues until the threat to one's personal integrity passes. It's that persistent anxiety of disappointment and the nagging sense that the world is not as it should be. In essence, serial suffering is the accumulation of burdens that threaten to overwhelm an individual's sense of self and purpose, occurring over a period of long time. And here's the second half of that question. Perhaps you've been in a 12-step program for a day, a month, a year, whatever, and you ask yourself, do I believe I can actually change? I believe that we can change. Human beings have the capacity for growth, learning, and personal development throughout their entire lives. It doesn't end at a certain age. In fact, most of us do change our attitudes, behaviors, and perspectives over the course of an entire lifetime. So, exposure to new ideas, experiences, or information often makes it so. Clearly, factors such as education, personal experiences, relationships, all contribute to our evolution. Significant change will require self-honesty and steady effort to overcome obstacles like unmanageability and make progress towards a faith-based life. So here's the problem. We're asleep. The Russian philosopher Gurdjieff said most human beings are asleep dreaming that they're awake. My first self-help book at the age of 17 was Wayne Dyer's book, Pull Your Own Strings. Dr. Dye became a catalyst in my recovery with his honest outlook on spirituality and changing the course you are on. His ideas centered on spiritual awakening and recognizing an inherent connection to a higher consciousness or source. His concept of awakening is central to his teachings, suggesting that people can move beyond a limited dreamlike existence into a more conscious and purposeful one. The concept of living a life where people are asleep, dreaming they are awake, encapsulates a key aspect of Dyer's message, which is people have the ability to shift their perspective and purposefully create a more awakened and empowered reality. Psychologists have discovered that we all wear self-made lenses. Then we create our beliefs and we don't see reality as it is. We are the false reality from our perspective lenses as we are. We see it through our perception. I cannot see reality ever as it is, objectively, because I will always wear my own lenses and be prejudiced from those lenses and likely not even know it. But sometimes we switch lenses. We have family lenses that we wear when we're around our families. We have our peer pressure lenses for when we are with our friends or coworkers, and we see them and ourselves in exactly the way we need to. With our personal lenses, we have inevitably developed delusional thoughts and misperceptions about pretty much everything around us. And we also pre-programmed lenses from our education and cultures from all of this lens wearing, whether deemed demented or not, but usually so, our feelings are formed. And our body sensations act as signals, providing information about our internal and external environment. However, our mind's perception of and beliefs about these sensations give rise to specific emotions. The story our mind tells us about our bodily sensations influences the specific emotion we feel. So we process reality through these lenses from a survival perspective. And the ultimate conclusion is we carry around very negative feelings about our reality, almost like a security blanket. We want and need predictability, control, and power. Addiction and all the mental illnesses that commingle with it form our attitude towards life, which is extremely distorted. And that then becomes how we behave, which is very dysfunctional and unmanageable. But here is where the big book comes to the rescue. In the fourth step, we work to reverse our behaviors, attitudes, feelings, thoughts, and finally our perceptions. We then begin to understand how unhealthy our system is, and we get very clear on our beliefs, which means we work very differently. And it's nice to know the solution is already here with us. It's not out there somewhere where we have to go get it. So, what is the solution? To wake up. Culture and society tells us we need to know. And what is that we need to know? And the answer is we need to know something, anything. That's how our culture is run. We allow ourselves to feel, even when or if we can't name the feeling, we still continue to feel it. And then we do something to arouse our interest in doing what we need to do. We give up thinking about it and do something about it. And we just do it, like the Nike slogan said, and made billions of dollars from that small little statement. But that is exactly what we do. We just do it. And once I began to wake up, that is where my knowing would flow from. A complete reversal of my prior way of doing things, as you can see in the picture. My missteps brought me closer to the light, each one pushing me closer and closer. I never thought I could live without my fallacy of control. I actually had myself convinced that I was very much in control, even though my life was like a merry-go-round. When it came for me, it came fast, and it built on each moment of pain that was turned into an important lesson. I found enlightenment. It was subtle but obvious. All of my collective spiritual experiences blossomed into a full-blown awakening to the power. No more self-imposed control, but the power was there. This didn't mean I was a passive participant in my life. It meant I now had the ability to be a co-creator. And funny enough, it doesn't matter what you feel and it doesn't matter what you know. What you do and when you do things differently, that will lead to thinking differently. And then you will feel differently, which is where that statement, which is if you want to know what's going on in life, look at where your feet are. What's your behaviors? What's happening? So it's a new way of life. I have a new co-pilot. I am becoming the author of my story, and my creator is my editor and publisher. I set the book subject, and the creator makes the necessary edits. And this is from Dr. Dan Siegel. I really like him, and I recommend any of his books that you might come across. He said, it's a way of really taking a mind and awakening it to the fact that you aren't just a passive participant in life, but can be an active captain of your own ship. This is how you become an author of the own story of your life. I love that. So let's reflect a little bit and consider these questions over the next few weeks. Think about where your life is less than satisfactory for you. This is just thinking. You don't have to take any action. I just want you to think about it. Think about how effective have you been in your efforts? Are you happy with your outcomes? Because you are in this workshop, I know you have made improvements in your life, but there is still so much more to do and so much more available because we always evolve. That is the whole point of life, to evolve. And this can be a tough question. Do I really want my life to change? And, the knee jerk answer would be, of course I do. Well, really think about it. Do I really want my life to change? Please answer it honestly. And there's no right or wrong answer to this question. This is an excavating experience. I need to know what my blocks are so that I can get beyond them in whatever way, shape, or form they present to me. But, do I really want my life to change? You know what I would tell somebody as a beginner? No, run for your life. This is a lot of work. I'm just kidding, but, you know, some people think they want their life to change when they really don't. And what would you like to see change? Be specific. Ask yourself, what changes would you like to see? Jot your answers down. How about the thoughts that disturb your well being? What feelings would you like to see released or at least seen in a new light? How about your behaviors? Are there any new behaviors that you would like to implement or improve? What about your relationships? Who would remain and who would be removed with your new changes? And what is the invitation? What have I been invited to do here? You could ask yourself these questions during your morning prayer or meditation, or you can jot down some answers while it comes to you now. The timing for your morning meditation or contemplation sets your intention for the day ahead. And don't forget to keep notes from your morning session, as often there are whispers of information and guidance when contemplating your day. So keep your ears open and your notebook close by. Then, after you answer the questions, remember to question your answers. I remember the first time I heard this statement, I had to repeat it over and over again to understand its message. I am a seeker. I question everything. I probably annoy people. I have tried religion shopping, self-help books, theories, therapy, psych degrees, certifications, all in search of more answers. My answers, the answers. I tried to talk it out, walk it out, eat it away, fill it with relationships, Mr. Right, Mr. Wrong, children. Nothing was making a big enough difference. Then I stepped into the light at a very grim time in my life, but this time with a very happy ending. How had I missed the mark so horribly? How had I been missing the 12 steps deeper message for recovery and healing? I attended meetings for so long, and no one was actually talking about the steps. I don't want to be able to recite the steps and just knowing the steps or needing them in a crisis. I want to walk in the light of the steps daily, hand in hand with my creator. And so far, that is exactly what I've been doing, and the difference is phenomenal. Step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these 12 steps, I am carrying the message to addicts and to practice these principles in all my affairs. I read and memorized the 12 steps until I walked, breathed, and used them in my every moment. I invited my higher power into my heart with a willingness I hadn't believed was sufficient. When worry and fear were banging around in my head, I finally looked in my heart for the light, my light. My Creator shines the light on my mistaken beliefs, but there's no judgment. I needed an escape from being in abusive situations, and I needed to realize I was no longer in these situations, but I was still behaving as if I was. I didn't trust for a long time, but in the dark space of that parking lot on that fateful night, I saw the spark and allowed myself to let go and let God. So that is the end of the presentation. And now I can see if anybody has questions, comments, anything at all.
Do we just unmute or raise our hand?
You know what? Raise your hand, Susan, just so we can make sure we stay civilized, I guess. Go ahead, Susan.
Um, is there going to be, I have like a couple like technical questions, but will there
Yeah.
be a part where you turn off the recording and I can like share my heart or whatever, you know?
If you want me to shut off the recording, I can shut it off.
Okay, I
Um,
just ask you.
yep, I generally keep it on. And the video works, it's nobody's face is shown. But I don't want anyone to feel like they can't share. So if somebody doesn't want to share with the recording on, I have no problem turning it off. So anyone that needs me to do that can just say, "Can you turn the
Okay.
recording off?"
Then what I wanted to do was there was a slide right before the is my life serial suffering question. Could you put that one up again just so I could screenshot it quickly? And I know you send them, but I didn't really get to take a look at it because I was distracted.
All right, so there were
Or,
two. Um, I'll just share it and you can tell me if it's the right one.
okay.
Let's see. All right, so here we go. Is it that one?
The one right before that one.
For it. This is the one before.
Yes, perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool. And then one other technical question. I really, really loved what everything you read after you said, "Is my life serial suffering?" Up until you said, then the next question, "Do I believe I can actually change?" Will we get a transcript or is there a way to get a transcript of everything that you say, actually?
I don't think that there is.
Okay.
Um,
So you send the recording and the slides, basically, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, you will get that. You can look at that.
Okay.
I mean, if there was like a specific page, I could probably go back and send you something. It might not be the same because some of it is off the cuff, you know what I mean?
Okay.
But that
Okay.
I can do that if you need me to do it.
Awesome. So I would email you about that.
Yep,
Okay, cool. Then if you could turn the recording off, I'd like to share.
sure can.
Okay.
Let me figure out where. Yeah. Nope. I stop sharing. Recording unless somebody wants me not to. Okay.
Hi, but I
Hey,
just
Carol. Hi, Lonnie.
hi Lisa. I just wanted to say how happy I am to be here, and it's so good to see you and to see everybody. And I had that thought in my mind about making my picture. The last time I made a picture of myself in bed with the covers over my head. I think I'm going to do another rendition of that.
Yes. Good. I highly recommend it. And I'm telling you guys, get your markers out, your paints, your colored pencils, whatever you've got at home. Really put some effort into that picture.
You know, I was telling my sponsee today, she was feeling very irritable and discontent. And I said, well, do you wake up every day and you think that, life is going to be just wonderful and rosy? I said, is that how you approach the day? Because the human existence is that life is suffering, and that's why we have to have a power greater than ourselves, you know?
Yep.
So, yeah. So I just wanted to say hello and to tell you how glad I am to be here.
I'm glad you're here. And so everyone knows Lonnie is Carol's husband. He will be in the group with us this time too.
Oh, I know you.
You better know her.
I do. Hey, we meditate, we try and meditate every day and we do yoga.
Yeah.
And it does help set the course of our day when we do it. It
Yes.
is quite beneficial. So it's something that we have experienced. And I think, why we are here is to continue to improve our conscious contact with whatever it is. Not sure what it is.
Exactly.
I still don't like calling it a group of drunks, but that works.
Whatever gets you there. The name is not that important. It's just important that you do the work in whatever way, shape, or form you do. Because we can call it whatever you want. There was one person once that told me that her higher power was a unicorn. Okay, I can't dispute that.
Yeah.
I don't know. And that's what I was going to tell you. My morning statement every morning is I don't know what today is going to be like. I don't put any positive
Expectation.
or because if I put a positive spin and it doesn't go that way, I'm disappointed. I don't want to do something negative because I'll fulfill it. So I just wake up and I say, I don't know what the day is going to be like, but I know I have guidance, I know I have support, and that's how I'm going to go forward with my day.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Love that. Thank you.
I don't know is a wonderful new statement that I make in my life. Thank you guys.
Thanks.
You too.